Thank you. Well, again, I'm representing a team, and I'd like to say that I'm sort of the messenger, but have worked intimately with Phil Hogan, Robbie Dame, Brian Bergkamp, Stu, and others. And so what I'm going to show you today is basically coming out of this team effort. And if I can't answer any of your questions, I've got people here that can. So hopefully we'll cover all of this. So the thing that Norm wants to know is shoreline slip rate. This is it. Preferred is equal to 0.06 millimeters per year with the range. And with that, are there any questions? So,
yeah. Can you go back one slide?
So I thought you'd all ask about how did we come up with these numbers? So now I'm going to tell you how we came up with it. So my objective here is to talk about two of our charges. One was to determine the southern extent of the shoreline fault zone in San Luis Obispo Bay, determine the slip rate of the shoreline fault zone, and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to briefly explain to you the methodology that we used and show you how we selected potential piercing points to get offsets along the faults and to estimate ages to use in slip rate estimates, and then finally to present the slip rates to you. So you've seen this slide before. I won't dwell upon this. This is the area that I'm going to discuss. These are basically faults that were drawn on here in before 2010. This is a shoreline fault coming down right through here, and so what we're going to be looking at is what does this 3D volume in this area show us in regards to faulting and piercing points. Just a brief description of the data collection methodology. We use the P cable, which is 14 streamers, and this was run along lines that are 12.5 meters apart. So to give you an idea, this is a really, really detailed survey. And so what we're doing here is giving you very, very high resolution. We're talking about 2 meters vertical resolution and 3 meters of horizontal resolution on here. So this is fine grain. This is what we're working with, which is this is a portion of the 3D volume to give you an example of how we can image the data, the acoustic data that we get here. This is just a bench cut. So we can go down, we can slice, and we can dice. And this is what we've done in our interpretation methods. We've also used various attributes to help us out, to give us good visualization. On the left here is just an amplitude. Here is a smooth similarity time slice at about 0.08 seconds deep. And we use another one here, which is called the smooth dip of maximum similarity. Again, I point out to you that we can start seeing some very finite structures that we hadn't been able to recognize prior to this. So using those types of attributes, we're able to see fine lines in here as well as channels and other features. We've interpreted here. I'll get back to that in a short while. But what I'd like to do is present to you what a 3D perspective view of this looks like. The interesting thing about this is that these fine lines right along through here, another fine line here, are basically, this is the shoreline fault. So we've been able to image that shoreline fault in really good detail. Go back again here, sorry. The other thing that this thing is showing us is a difference in stratigraphy. And why is stratigraphy important? Stratigraphy is important because it gives us a very coarse time, age. It gives us ability to understand what we're dealing with in age, and then we'll use other things to get ages as well. This is Franciscan, slivered in along the faults. This in here, it's not imaged well on this slide, but is Cretaceous sandstone. And then this is bedrock. This is all bedrock. This is the smooth similarity on the bedrock surface, and all of these channels are eroded and incised into the bedrock surface. And we see new faults. We see an unnamed fault in here. We see the old Pachel fault coming down here, another part of the Pachel fault coming through here. This has been mapped before, but we see it in finer detail here. We can't carry it as far as it was shown previously, but we do see examples of that fault in this data. So I showed you the Franciscan. That's basically our acoustic basement in this area here. Sorry about this. That's our acoustic basement. I told you about the Cretaceous sandstone that lies up above the Franciscan complex. And then the bedrock is made up of the abyssal formation, and then overlying that are quaternary sediments. And what I've shown in here is these stratigraphic horizons that has been mapped and carried into the area. This comes from the sequence stratigraphy report that LCI groups, Hans Abrahams Ward, and other people have put together, and we've just carried that horizons and brought them into where we see Pleistocene deposits in the region. And I'll show you examples of how we've determined the Pleistocene deposits. So basically what we've done is we used the bedrock surface for our mapping. We've removed all the sediments on top of that, and we've gone down and we've used the bedrock surface. And this is the bedrock surface uninterpreted. Here it is interpreted, and so this is just it blowing up to show you what it is. Now what happens here, which I think is really quite interesting, we could bring the shoreline fault down to this point here, and then we're able to carry it all the way down to the southern end of the 3D volume. Very, very straightforward, very clean fault. This has very little deformation on either side of that fault. It's just a knife edge, just a beautiful fault. The other thing that we've been able to do, sorry about this, is to carry the Oceano fault up and bring it in, and it looks like it acts as another splay of the shoreline fault that takes off in this direction here. And then we see the North Pachel fault, which we infer that comes in somewhere like this. The Southern Pachel fault comes down something like this. And then we see unnamed faults coming in through here. And then in the northern part of the region, we see the Los Barros fault, which makes up is one of a series of faults, the Wilmar Avenue fault and other faults up in here, which makes up the southwest boundary zone. But that comes in and appears to merge with the shoreline fault in here. So we have the Oceano fault coming in, merging with this part, the main strand of the shoreline fault, coming up with the Los Barros fault, merging with it up here. This is all converging, and it's converging in an area where we have Sousa rock, which is an uplifted structure. Okay, so if we look at one of the profiles, line 8503, showing the stratigraphy in the area, here we can see the faults, the various faults offsetting the basement. Some of them, like this Oceano fault, goes right up through what we call late Pleistocene deposits or upper Pleistocene deposits, coming up and offsetting what is the H10 horizon. This is the H10 horizon that Hans has produced elsewhere, and we carry that in from basically offshore. And then we can see various other faults. For instance, the shoreline fault comes up and offsets the bedrock in this area here. An unnamed fault offsets it in here, and here's the Oceano fault comes up and offsets again the H10 horizon. And looking at a profile across here, we see that we have the late Pleistocene deposits lapping up onto the seafloor surface, and I'll get back to this a little bit further, but here we have some very nice age constraints in here because we have buried channels that underlie this Pleistocene deposits. Here's the H10 horizon that we carry on through with Holocene sediments taking on top of it, and this is the fill in the canyon, in the channels themselves. That Pleistocene deposit can be very well imaged. You can see it coming right across here. This is on a time slice that we just simply took a time slice across the volume, and you can see where this Pleistocene deposits lap up onto the bedrock surface. And in that Pleistocene deposit, which we think is probably fluvial marine, coastal plain deposits, we see a lot of meandering channels within that deposit. And here are these well-incised bedrock channels coming down through here. So this is another very nice image that we can use for not only determining our stratigraphy, but also getting a handle on when these channels were formed. We've actually isopacked that. We've isopacked the quaternary sediments, which is shown in this part of the slide, and this is the Pleistocene part of it. This is the boundary, and I'll mention that periodically as I go through our talk, where this boundary laps up. This is the Pleistocene deposits, and then it laps up onto the bedrock surface. From this information, we've actually been able to identify 9 different sets of piercing points that we can use. These are piercing points that cross the faults. And what we did is we looked at the ones that cross the shoreline fault and the oceano fault. We looked at these in great detail to see if we can determine any offset along these faults. Sorry. So I'm going to start with our best piercing point, the piercing point that we used for actually producing that slip rate that I gave you in the first talk. And that piercing point lies right down here. This is a shoreline. There is actually 4 different shorelines that we were able to image in the data. This is a gridded contour of the strand lines, and we have one at 79 meters, another one at 84 meters, another one at 92 meters, and another one at 97 meters, and they're all shown here in these orange lines. Now, the ones that we used that crossed the shoreline fault is the 84 meter and the 94 meter deep shoreline angles, and that's right in through here. Here's the 84, and here is the 92 right in there. What it looks like in the amplitude time slice is right here. You can see a bit of an offset. This is the 84 meter. This is the 92 meter offset. Again, you can see it here. And not to use my word, you can see it very nicely here, offset here, and coming around here. This is our preferred offset. We see 9.4 meters plus or minus 6 meters. For general purposes, we say 10 meters. We've offset this at 10 meters. Now, how do we get an age at it? So if you buy our offset, now we need to jump in and try to get some ages on this thing. And so looking at a profile outside of the area, actually this is a USGS profile that cuts the southern edge of our 3D volume. We are able to carry these horizons that Hans and other people have mapped elsewhere, and actually we carried in from the work that Phil has done and discussed yesterday in the Point Sal area. So we're able to carry that horizon there, which is H10. We are able to carry the H30 horizon in like this, and we see the onlap of the H40 horizon on here. So if you can see, we're constraining. Here is what this is a bleak cut of where the shoreline is. You can see we we cut that obliquely, and that lies beneath the H30 horizon and above what we would call the H40 horizon. So stratigraphically, we have it bracketed. Also, if we go and look at the sea level curve, basically this is sort of circular reasoning because those horizons were based on the sea level curves. But, excuse me, but if we look at that, we prefer this H30 horizon. And our second preference would be, I keep doing that, sorry about that. Our second preferences would be the H40 horizon. So this is our age model. And again, if we use one of our own profiles in this area here, we can see where we've mapped. There's a vertical offset of the shoreline angle in here, and it's cut into upper Pleistocene strata. Therefore, we say it incised upper Pleistocene. We have a preferred date of 155 to 185,000 years. That would be MIS 6C to 6E. And using that then at a 10-meter offset that I showed you before, therefore we get the 0.06 millimeters per year. We have a range that actually goes from 0.01 to 0.51 millimeter per year if we wanted to go outside of that preferred age. So we feel pretty confident about this age. We think this is a good offset. And this is our preferred piercing point. Now let's go and look at other piercing points in there. Let's look at the channels that exist here, because there's some really very, very nice channels here. The interesting thing about these channels, this is just a portion of our volume, but we have 12 channels that we identified, and we basically lettered them A to L. 3 we use for slip rates. Basically, most of the channels that we saw did not exhibit offset. So we really didn't feel that they were showing us anything, although they play a game in telling us something about what's happening with the activity on the shoreline fault. And one of the faults that we've used is this, or channels that we use is channel A. The interesting thing about channel A is that we have Sousa rock here, which it seems like these major channel complex comes down and splits around this very resistant rock that's been uplifted in the area. And that also makes it difficult to try to determine if you're looking at deflection or if you're looking at offset. But I hope to convince you that we do see some offset on here. So we use 3 different methodologies in identifying piercing points. We use the attribute where we can see the fault coming right on through, for instance, in this channel, channel A. We actually used in GIS a slope analysis where we could define the margins of the channels in fine detail. And then we used a contour map and image where we could see talwigs. So we used 2 different piercing point types for our channel. One was the margins, and one is talwigs. So we looked at them both. So those are the rationale that we used in trying to pick piercing points. Okay, so I showed you the shoreline down here along the shoreline fault, the shoreline angles that were offset in this area here. So let's just go up here and look at channel F and I and see what we see there. We're going to move up this shoreline fault up into here. So I'm going to show you this, and then we'll go in here and look. These channels don't show any offset at all. You can see the margins go straight across. You can see the talwigs, they come straight across. Let's see, they should be,
Is this
actually,
right direction or
this
upside
is
down?
the one I'm looking at right here.
Okay, great.
Yeah. It filled the whole screen, but okay. This is a problem going from a Mac to a PC, I'm sure. Anyway, the shoreline fault comes across this channel. It does not offset the channel in any fashion. You can see that this is pretty straight across. This is channel I. I'm going to have the same thing circling on the other one too, yeah.
Gary, and that was a slope map we were just
That's a
looking at?
slope map. So the white line on that slope map is the upper edge where the deflection is the greatest. And so that gives us the finest line. Again, we're probably in 3 meters of resolution there. But the Talwigs on this thing is about 6 meters wide. So what we said is, okay, we could probably have up to 6 meters offset on this channel and not really be able to see it. So I don't believe it. I don't believe the channel is offset, but if you wanted to look at this in some fashion, 6 meter of offset at 20,000 years would give us 0.15 millimeters per year as a max. I don't believe that. That isn't my preferred offset. My preferred offset is 0. And then we have a range of offsets here. If we use 250,000 years, we have 0.004 millimeters. Or if we use 1.4 million years, we have 0.004 millimeters. And then we have 0.02 millimeters if we use 250,000. So that's the range that this offset should be. But my preference is 0. My preference is 0. Okay, yeah, let's go to the next. Okay, so the next one, and I might have the same thing on channel A. Let's go and look at channel A. Yeah, okay, so this is okay on channel A. Again, the interesting thing is we see the shoreline fault comes right in through here. You can't see it well. In the computer, you can see it crosses through here. Some of that lower channel field is offset by that fault. You can see it here. It goes up in there. This is produced from a very narrow window that we used at 5 milliseconds across this area to see if indeed we saw offset in the channel fill. And it does show it. It just shows, and it shows it best here. Okay, well, we're back again to the same problem. So in this case, I'm going to talk a little bit about here and how the other fault comes in, which is the Oceano fault, how that comes in and merges with the shoreline fault. And it comes in and merges very, very closely. I think you have a good example of a good splay coming off of the shoreline fault. It's the closest that I've seen in any of the data that we've collected around here. It's about as close as you get within something like 4 or 5 meters, okay? The other thing is as we go down to the Oceano faults, which I'll show you here. Yeah. Okay, so this thing was also offset. For those of you that are interested, I'll be happy to show you on my computer. This is one reason you shouldn't have a PC. Okay, so this thing is offset too. Actually, this Oceano fault comes right in through here. You can see where it comes. It comes right through here, and that's offsetting the margin of the channel here. This is the Oceano fault. Let's go one more. Let's see if we can go one more down. Yeah, go down the next one. Okay. Another interesting thing is if we look at the incision into the bedrock at the base, and we look at the Talwig in this area here. This is 1 meter contour interval. And the interesting thing is we have a Talwig that comes right down like this. And it's probably crosses the fault here. And then we have this part of the Talwig that's offset. This is one of the best Talwig offsets that we have, that we've seen here. And that is about 40 meters from here to here. We also have 40 meters of offset down on the wall down here, and another 20 meters of offset here. So we have both, we're within a good range of both margin and Talweg as far as offsets are concerned, right? Okay, so then I'd like to just jump a little bit down here to channels F and J, which are in here. Again, we're having the same problem. But you're going to see that these channels appear, again, not to be offset. There is a truncation that takes place on two of these channels, but I think that truncation is the results of a fault line scarp that was there, and what happened was it was uplifted, the bedrock was uplifted on the eastern side. You had erosion taking place. You had Pleistocene deposits. These things were on the east side, eroded into the bedrock, and then continued out onto, debouched, if you like, onto very near shore sediments when sea level was lower. Okay, and that's this area here. These channels here, this channel here is, we don't see any offset on that. Again, you can apply the 6 meters as saying that it could possibly be offset by 3 to 6 meters, but okay, so again, we're just using our model to determine what the ages of these things are. We're going to deal with, this is a preferred age, another preferred age in here. We think this is where they were the ages they were formed. And using these ages, this is what we come up with, which I think is a pretty interesting picture. So first of all, as I mentioned earlier, channel A is offset with margins are 20 to 40 meters plus or minus 10 meters. Talweg, 30 to 40 meters plus or minus 10 meters. I think we've got that fairly well constrained. That means that these things were incised into bedrock at somewhere between 60 to 80 meters along this stretch. It lies beneath H10. We think it initially incised in MIS 8B, and therefore we come up with a preferred slip rate then for this part of the shoreline fault at 0.16 millimeters per year. And that's 40 meters offset at 250,000 years. This would be the slip rate. Sorry about this. Sorry, guys.
Hey, Gary, was that it was a preferred slip rate, but you're using the maximum offset?
Right. Well, no, we're using 40 for the preferred slip rate. Yes, we're using what we measured as 40 meters. That's what is our preferred offset. Okay.
The maximum was your preferred.
Right. Yeah, because we can see that pretty well in that. Okay, so let's see, where was I here? Okay, so our preferred at this point is 0.16 millimeters per year. Down here on the shoreline offset piercing points, we had 0.06 millimeters per year. Here, if we had a maximum, which I don't believe, of 0.15 millimeters per year. If you had offset on here, it's then being partitioned into to represent this part. So we're jumping up from 0.06 millimeters per year, which I think is really a good number, to 0.16. All right?
Gary, a point of clarification. The slip rate for the Oceano fault, that's a maximum right lateral?
Yes, it's
Rate?
right lateral.
And that's based on your 6 meter Thalweg
Right,
resolution? Okay.
right. Okay, so the preliminary results then of this is that we think we now can follow the shoreline fault very nicely to the edge of the volume. We've now extended it, if you like. Remember I told you we saw it up here when we started. Now with this volume, we've extended it down to here. So we met that objective. The slip rate on the shoreline fault appears to be systematically variable. We still need more work to do on this, but it increases from south to north with a preferred range of 0.6 millimeters per year to 0.16 millimeters per year, respectively. And then, I didn't get into this in great detail, but the vertical to horizontal ratio for the shoreline fault zone is 10:1. So those are our basic conclusions, and this is how we came about obtaining those numbers. And by the way, I'd like to point out is that this is migrated data, and we assumed a velocity of 1,600 meters per second because we didn't have good velocity numbers to use. So we assumed 1,600 meters per second for our depth. Yeah.
Gary, is it supposed to read horizontal to vertical as 10:1?
Probably reverse, isn't it? Vertical, yeah. Reverse,
Okay.
sorry. That was the
gonna
last
say,
thing I was
that is
putting in.
news.
No,
You got news.
that's my fault. My fault, you're right. Okay, that's my story. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I'm sure if I can't answer them, Phil's here and other people here that can answer them. Okay?
We've been curious about the Channel A story for a while,
Right.
especially because of the constraint that we have to the south, where we see those zero offset channels to your best estimate. And we'll show later to the PPRP how we are handling right now the resolution issue. There are other channels. There's the B and C channel complex that is in between those two. Can you go back to a map and can we see where how those fit into the story and whether they corroborate a 40-meter offset of channel A or if it's...
I might even have one, no, it's going to be the same problem though. Let me go back to, so this is what you're talking about here. This is the B, this is what you're talking about?
It looks like another opportunity to evaluate the offset of the Oceano and the shoreline. And is there information from there that would help corroborate the story of how the strike slip rates may merge and just further support for that 40-meter offset of channel A? Because as you know, we've had some questions
Right.
about the quality of those piercing
Right.
features.
And that, indeed, we have looked at that, Steve, but we are still continuing to look at it
Okay.
because this is a bit of a complex channel. We have C crossing over B. We have a series, this is a crossover that's occurring right there at that crossing of the shoreline fault or the Oceano fault. And so that is an area that we've focused on, we've looked at it. We don't see any good offsets there, but we're going to look at it closer.
Hey, just a quick question on the uncertainty of the channel A offset. 20 to 40 meters of the margin, plus or minus 10 meters. Does that mean the range is 10 to 50 meters?
So the margins, so one side of the margin, this side of the margin is offset 20 meters. This side we see an offset of 40 meters.
And then the plus or minus 10 meters is on each of those two values?
Each on those, yeah, plus or minus 10 meters.
And then the Thauweg is a range also, 30 to 40, plus
Right.
or minus 10. So is that
Right.
20 to 50?
20 to
When you say 30 to 40 meters of offset, plus or minus 10 meters.
10 meters, right.
So it's the full range. I'm
Could
trying
be
to
up to
explore the
50
full
meters,
range.
yeah, yeah.
So it could be as little as 20 meters.
It's 20, right, right.
And out of those,
Hang on a minute.
I just wanted
Let
to
Phil
interject
answer
here and mention that for the channel Ballweg offset, it's 40 plus or minus 10 meters. So it's not 30 to 40 plus or minus 10. It's 40 plus or minus 10. So the range is 30 to 50, and our preferred offset is 40 meters.
okay,
Can
and
we
that's,
go back to the slide where you show the channel Thalweg?
Where I show the channel.
Yeah, the Channel A Thalweg. There was a contour map. Yeah, that one. It looks to me from the contours that there are two troughs west of the fault. No, very close to the fault. One of them has a blue line and the other doesn't. I'm wondering, yeah, that one had, yeah. So that one looks like it was used to measure the 40 meters.
Right.
Is the other trough a viable interpretation, sort of an alternative interpretation of the Thalweg?
So this is the rationale, Hans, that was used on this, is that this Thalweg, if you back it off, would show something like this, okay? So if it was moved by the fault, this Thalweg is abandoned, it's moved up here, we have this nose of a bedrock ridge coming out. This then continues over, and this would be the youngest, this would be the latest Thalweg. Does that make sense?
You mean reactivated after faulting? Is that
Right,
what-
yeah. In other words, this was down here. So before any slip took place, you had the Thalweg coming down like this, and then slip took place. This was was active and comes down this way there. I mean, that's the rationale that we use on that.
And
So multiple episodes of occupation of this channel.
Yeah.
but those two episodes would be disrupted in time. Was there a filling event in between and then a resizing event in order to isolate that and allow it to move 20 meters?
That's a good question, Steve. I don't know that I can answer that. I mean, it must be, but a lot of that evidence could be gone, could have been eroded.
And just so I'm clear on the measurement of the 40 meters of offset, you have a yellow projection line and a blue. Where did you measure 40 meters?
Sorry. The 40 meters is measured from here to here.
Okay.
This is an important point. This is something that I failed to mention, is that we have another nested channel in this same thing. This is a nested channel, and it is not offset by the shoreline fault. So this offset took place prior to the development of that channel and has not taken place since that channel was formed.
Okay, and then on the right hand, so that would be a third episode of occupation of this channel, yeah? Right. Okay, and then on the right hand image, there's a yellow line that looks like a Thalweg projection.
This one here?
Yeah, is that what it is? Is that a Thalweg?
Yeah, okay, so the reason for that one is, this is another possibility. We could say that there's no offset on this. And if this is no offset, sorry, if there's no offset, then it would come right along like this. I don't believe it. I mean, but that's a possibility, and that's why that yellow line is in there.
So would the full range then be something like 0 to 50?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for that to be the case, for there to be 0, looking at the contour plot to the left, there would be two possibilities. One, there would be a small meander in order to link those up. I'm looking at the left slide. And then also those lower two contours, could that be a slope? How confident is the interpretation that that's a bedrock ridge? Could that be some sort of slope failure or something else that could give the appearance of a offset margin? Just to, do you have a 0 possibility here, or is that
So,
really?
Phil, I'll let you answer that.
We're confident that that's a bedrock ridge.
Yeah,
It's not a
I
slope
think we're pretty
failure.
confident that's a
Also, I might mention that the contours are smoothed in GIS. So the actual raw data, the amplitude data, shows a much sharper break there rather than at the fault, rather than being smooth as illustrated in this figure.
So an offset that's less than 20 would really require there to be a paleomeander or something to connect those thalwags in your interpretation, right? Following the lines of modifying that yellow line. Do you see evidence? Can you resolve whether the pattern of that channel thalweg has meanders on that scale? Do you understand my question?
Yes, I think we can resolve it, and we don't see meanders on that scale. The thalweg is fairly well defined and narrow.
Gary, skipping two channels, I think it was F and I, that your preference was for no offset, but some limit of resolution. And could you kind of go back to the map and just kind of show where those are and what your sort of, are those essentially the lower slip rate of 0.06 from the offset back edge of a shoreline angle? Is that,
This is what you're talking about here?
well, was that across, were those measured, those zero displacements were
Right,
measured on the
right,
Oceano Fault as
right.
opposed to, and then do those channels that cross further to the south or southwest along the shoreline fault, is there any resolution?
These here?
Yeah, within,
Right, no, I mean, that's it. We don't see any displacement, no offsets on that, on those channels. However, our resolution is 3 meters, so you could have 3 meters offset and you wouldn't see it.
and those are sort of MIS 2 channels, or do you have an age constraint on those?
What did we put on that, Phil? What age is that?
Which channel?
It's F and I.
Where they cross the shoreline fault.
We have a table we can give you on all of these
Okay,
things.
I'm-
Yeah,
Channel F, our preferred initial occupation or incision, is stage 8. So 250,000 years ago, stage 8B. We believe that channel F was reoccupied as recently as stage 2 at 15 to 20,000 years. Channels J and I believe that our preferred interpretation of the initial bedrock incision for channel I is stage 10. But again, it may have been reoccupied as recently as stage 2 at 15 to 20,000 years ago. And then finally, channel J, initial bedrock incision, preferred interpretation is that it was incised during stage 6B, between 130 and 150,000 years ago, and that it may have been reoccupied as recently as stage 2.
Thank you.
Can you comment briefly on why you prefer those ages for those channels, or is?
well, there's 3 different ways of doing it. One way is they were bracketed between your horizons.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess
Yeah.
maybe I should get back to channel A because it's that one. That one's in bedrock. There's a stage. It's the preferred age is 240,000 years for the offset.
Yes, we
So
traced.
can you comment on the
Certainly.
age constraints on channel A?
Yes. In terms of channel A, the age constraints are that we traced channel A downstream, outside the limits of the 3D survey area, and used the USGS 2D data southwest of the survey area to look at the relationship of channel A and J and I with respect to horizons 30 and 40, and use that to help bracket or constrain the age of initial incision of those channels.
Great. I was. Thank you. I wasn't aware of that.
Gary, I'm typing over my old notes. Can you can you go back to the figures showing your preferred offset amounts for channel A?
Okay, let's see here.
There, that slide. And so what? One more time. I'm sorry. The preference for the
Well, I
Thalweg
think what
offset.
you want is this one. here, this here, preferred,
Okay.
right? This
So
one
the,
here.
no, not the slip rate. I'm interested in the offset
Oh, the offset.
right now. So in the upper right corner, you show
Right.
that the margin,
This is a mistake, is,
no,
Yes.
but first the margin. What is the
Oh, I know,
preferred
okay.
offset of,
wait a minute, hang on a minute here. I'll get, there we go. So the margins, 20 meters offset in this margin here, 40 meters here.
This is best illustrated in the amplitude time slice
Okay.
that's shown on the
All right,
previous
perfect for
figure.
that,
yeah,
that
no.
information to this slide.
Yeah, we can review that later. Okay, so the margin is 20 and 40 on opposite sides. And then the Thalwag, how do we represent the uncertainty? That is a 40
Sorry, yeah.
40 meter plus or minus
10.
10. Okay.
Yeah.
But in the zero limit, you can reject?
I would think so, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Gary, so, is that on?
No, it's not on.
So it's the age of it is, the age estimate is a couple hundred, 250,000 years, is that right?
Yes.
And so to get that offset, it has to be, does this channel have to be maintained for that amount of, entirely for that amount of time to actually get that offset, or, because it's,
No, I don't think so, because the thing is that you eroded the Talweg. The Talweg has been, whenever the Talweg was eroded, it's filled. It's obviously filled now. It's when it was eroded. So what you're looking at is, maybe I should go to my diagram.
but it had to get
here.
reestablished,
Let me-
reestablish its trace
Let me,
where at some point,
let's see here, and if I can show you some of our rationale in doing this.
I'm just trying to understand the
Yeah,
sequence of
yeah,
events.
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I think
just-
Steve was alluded to it or asked a question about it.
I thought I had this thing in here. Well, I can't find it. I have a diagram in there that we used for, maybe Sirkin, you can go, it would be at the, I thought it was at the last slide down there. Yeah. It's taking a while for it to come up. That's it?
That's it.
Well, it didn't get in. Okay. What we've done is we looked at where sea level drops. So at the lowest, so if we take the depth of the Talweg, let's just arbitrarily say 50 meters. We look on the sea level curve when that sea level on those various stages were at that depth, and this is primarily a mid-shelf depth. We then, this is a bit subjective, but we say, okay, when is this Talweg going to form on each one of these low stands of sea levels? And so we bracket where that forms. And then as the sea level rises again, we assume that it's going to be filled, so it fills up. So if it's left alone, it's preserved, then that Talweg, the bottom of that Talweg represents when initial accretion took place. Now the question could be, at another low stand of sea level, was it fully exhumed and deepened? Or did that Talweg form when that preceding sea level got down to that level? So we tried to figure out where it was based on where this thing was bracketed with the horizons and where the Pleistocene sediments overlie. the channels, and then we went back to the sea level curve and looked at what stage then would that channel most probably have been eroded. And then that talweg is what we would use for the piercing point. So if it was offset,
Yeah.
then we would, then we use that age that we determined.
So is that channel exhumed today? I mean, it's.
No, it's filled. All these are filled.
So it has to have been exhumed very recently to establish a straight course again, though, right? I mean, because you've got a straight course talweg that represents 0 offset, right? So it has to have been exhumed very recently and had that talweg reestablish a straight course across the fault.
So,
Because you have a talweg that projects with no offset.
let's see here, let me go back.
Does this make? I think just that topo map of it is.
Yeah,
just
I'm
as
trying to
good
get
as
back to
anything.
there. This one here?
No, the blow up of it's got all the contours.
Oh, the contour.
I think that's all the one that, no, yeah, that one.
Okay.
So the blue line on the north,
This
east
one
side
here.
of the fault. I'm looking on the left figure.
Okay.
The blue line that represents the talweg on the northeast side projects straight across the fault, right through there. So at that sometime very recently, that talweg had to be reestablished and incised a straight course across the fault. Right? I mean, because that shows essentially no offset. If you project 3 across the talweg, so the old talweg records 20 meters or 40 meters of offset. I think
So
it's
this one records 40 meters.
40 meters, but
Right.
it has to have reestablished a straight course across the fault very recently, right? Because you've got a talweg that projects straight across it. That shows no offset. So that has to be a much more recent incision.
Well, yeah, you mean more recent than this?
Yeah, well, it has to be very recent because it shows no offset.
Okay.
Yeah, we can discuss this in a little more detail
Yeah.
after lunch when we go through the slip rate, but that was a point I agree with. We have to talk to these guys maybe separately during a
It's
working
not
meeting.
impossible, it's just a very interesting set
Yeah.
of
So it can't be,
circumstances.
but it can't be any more recent than this.
Right.
See, that's,
Are we-
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a conundrum. In my mind, it is.
yeah,
It has to be a similar age to the young channel, both of which show no offset. Right?
Yeah.
So it has to have reestablished itself.
right,
And MIS 2 or 6B time seems like, that's what I'm.
okay.
Yes.
No, that's a good point.
Gary, if I
Good
could just
point.
interject, if we could go back to slide 51 or 55.
I only had 42 slides.
Okay. I just wanted to show the amplitudes, where you can see
what?
the raw data, the amplitude data that shows the 40 meters offset of the eastern channel margin. I think,
I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
can you put, Sarah, perhaps you could pull up the slide sorter.
Is it this one? This is 51 right here.
Okay. On 51,
Is this it?
no.
Yeah.
I think that's,
Okay, how about-
go to
how about-
55, go to 55. Slide 55, please.
This one here.
There we go. Full screen. Okay, here we go. Here's the raw data, the amplitude data, time slice on the right-hand side. You can see the clear channel offset of the eastern channel margin of approximately 40 plus or minus 10 meters. So that's where that comes from. The eastern channel margin, northeastern channel margin. It's rather dark, but there's where we measured the 20 plus or minus 10 meter offset. You can see this in time slice after time slice. Okay. So again,
Yeah,
this is.
I propose we continue working with you guys as proponent and resource experts at a working meeting later, but everything that you presented is excellent and is very, very helpful. What,
Am I
it's-
finished?
It's noon, yes, thank you, Gary.